So to build off of that government reporting obligation, it's important to tie it back through to defense contractors' contract obligations. So all of this, as you know, starts with being able to receive a contract award and acknowledge what FAR and DFARS clauses are part of that contract award. Now, it could be that you're managing end items that are being delivered off to the government. Many of our defense contractors we work with are doing just that. And they have this obligation to obviously report through wide area workflow with advanced ship notices. But often they may not be as familiar with the DFARS 252.211-7003 clause, which is the item marking and valuation clause, and refers to MIL Standard 130, which is the unique identification clause. Now, there's a couple ways to handle this in that as a prime contractor, you can be marking items as you receipt them in to build up these final assemblies and then ship your goods off to the government, but also make sure that your data gets automated in its reporting through wide area workflow to ultimately get received in, inspected, screened by DCMA, and allowing it to flow through to the government. But also, there's another way to do this as a prime contractor, which is to take that marking clause and the data clause associated to that marking, flowing it down to the subcontractor up top, where in step 2, you see that the contractor is marking the items and then providing the items through to the prime contractor, so the prime contractor already has these items marked with the IUID standard, and then building up and shipping the goods accordingly. But remember that it's the prime contractor's responsibility to once again coalesce all of this data together into transactions that flow through to the government systems in order to assure that they get paid. Because you want to make sure that if an IUID clause is in your contract by way of these DFARS references you see above, you want to make sure those items are being marked when they're receipted in to the government side. You don't want delayed payments. You don't want corrective actions against your contract for any reason, or any other remediation that has monetary impact or impact on your operation. Down below, you can see we look at the contractor managing property and that reporting obligation. Now, that reporting obligation is going to be illustrated with DFARS 252.211-7007, where the obligation of that contractor is to report using GFP module all the different transaction types, Sharrieff, that you noted back in the last section. And all of that, again, once again, gets screened by DCMA to ensure that all of this transaction type is being handled appropriately. You know, we end up dealing with numerous defense contractors that property managers have somehow found themselves in the responsibility of taking on this whole data management function and making sure that the reporting on the property side gets achieved, only to realize then that item marking by way of IUID is part of their obligation, and then finding themselves in a way starting to really take on, you know, and see the fact that this whole enterprise inside your defense contracting organization has this full commitment for data management coming from multiple departments, and that these reporting obligations, you know, have to be a consistent way of doing business within this DoD e-commerce world today. What's not making it easy too is the fact that these government systems are shifting constantly. You know, you've got new system names coming out, new modules emerging, modules that were once in DCMA e-tools, you know, in the future are going to be shifted over to the procurement integrated environment. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but to make sure that you're able to keep up on it and keep track of it. One thing also to note that property managers, in my experience, you know, seem either to get tripped up on or just need clarity from time to time, is that the -7007 clause that we see here, it does mean that they in fact need to report all of their items through to the IUID registry. What it does not mean is that they do not necessarily need to mark it with an IUID unless the -7003 clause is incorporated. So there's the government marking standards as defined, but then the reporting and how you mark with IUIDs, there are two halves to the whole, if you want to look at it that way. So just to be clear on that, when your reporting obligation may differ from your marking obligation in that instance. But